Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts and ideas to help grow healthy, happy, successful families that are both inside.
And outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Christina on Facebook.
And please leave us a like review on your favorite podcast platform.
I now have the pleasure of introducing Elena Czarnowski. Elena is an educator on a mission to help families raise future-ready kids. With a background in economics, math education, and over 2 decades in the technology sector, she founded Kid Laboratories to give parents practical tools to teach the skills schools often overlook: financial literacy, AI literacy, character development, and goal setting. As a mother of 3, Elena's work was inspired by a single realization. Many families want to prepare their children for a rapidly changing world, but don't always know where to start. She created engaging programs, workbooks, camps, and courses designed for busy families who want meaningful conversations in just 10 minutes a week. Elena is also the founder of Future Proof Kids, 10 minutes a week, a modern parenting guide focused on helping the next generation build confidence, critical thinking, resilience, and real-world readiness. Her message is clear: the future belongs to the kids who understand money, technology, and themselves. Welcome, Elena. It is a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
When we did our pre-show chat, we just like clicked immediately. It's like, yeah, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And this gap and this gap? And how do we really get these parents like involved? Because they want to be, but like you said, sometimes they don't know where to start, right? So if we have those tools, or we have this inspiration, if we have those strategies to help them get involved, it really, really helps. So I am excited to talk to you about how do we do this, right? But first of all, your passion. You talked about it in your bio some, but was there a pivotal point that said, you know what, I need to change how I'm parenting, what I'm doing, how I get engaged? Can you share about that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. I had this misconception that because I had, this robust background and tech and science that I was just gonna, I always say crush motherhood. I thought I was a smart mom and I was just gonna get it all done. And then flash into the real world. I was one day at a Target and I had my 3 sons and they were all kind of close in age. I think that was maybe 5 or 6, my oldest, and then 3 and 2, or something of that matter. And I was in the checkout line, and I was very exhausted, no sleep, just like living in those early years. And they started to kind of hound me for like the cheap little, trinkets and, junk food. And I just was trying to check out, was in the self checkout line. And I just said, get whatever you want, get whatever you want. I'm just trying to check out. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. And I just let it all go. And they grabbed, the dollar store treats or whatever they were, and the plastic and all these things that were just not my value system, like overconsumption, bad food. And I walked out and I remember feeling so defeated in the parking lot. Like, what am I doing? This is not in alignment with any of my values. And I just completely caved because I was exhausted. So it was that like, parking lot moment that I said, I need to go home when I'm not exhausted and tired. And I just need to write down what is our value system on money. I need to write down what's our value system on, like, health, food, and how we want to eat and take care of our bodies. And what's our value, even with me, I'd already kind of started tinkering with them because I just love tech and had my background in computer science and such. I'd already kind of been talking about these concepts, but like, what are real palatable ways we can do it so I can always go back to, no, remember, this is our value. I just wanted some structure. And that was the pivotal moment in the trenches where I just said, I need to write it down. It's so simple, write it down. And then I could have these proactive conversations with my kids, like I say, in 10 minutes a week, because I have the structure.
Absolutely love that, because that's one of the things we do often with our parents who come and work with us. The same is like, let's write down our family values and the educational goals, and let's work off of that. I mean, I hope one thing I always found out was that once those things were written down and on the refrigerator or whatever, it creates less conflict, because your child is doing
100%.
something and you walk over, it's like, hey, this is what it says. Is that living up to that? How can we move to that next step? So that is so important. I love that you're leading with that.
And we didn't really do that. So there was a
Mhm.
whole lot of times where we had to basically keep re-explaining the same things over and over. And
Mhm.
if you were tired and you didn't explain it the same way, then there was little nitpicking things. It's like, oh, this. Well, how come you let it sometimes? But so, yeah, writing it down, having it written down, that's not something we got to, but that's just a really great advice right off the bat, is like, if you have it written down, you can say, this is why, because this is how our family operates. So well done there. We didn't.
It's a tool to redirect them, and even your own help for redirection, because we get distracted and we're human beings as parents, so we get tired. So one of the things, just to dovetail off that, I created this super helpful, is a family crest. And I have this, it's at the end of my book. I have these family fun activity suggestions. And we created a family crest, which has our name on the top, Czarnowski. And organically, I had no pre-thought of this. When they were young, because our last name was kind of, 10 letters and so big, I taught them a song, how to try to remember to spell it. But I also told them, it just came out one day, like, Czarnowski means, like, the official meaning is never give up. That was just something that came out one day. And it was so great because kids want to give up. We all want to give up. We all have those moments when we want to throw in the towel. And I would say, oh, don't forget, your name means never give up. So it just can't do it. It's just not allowed. Yours Czarnowski. And so we put that all together in a family crest, and I made it, a cute little computer program with our name. And then there's 4 quadrants, which has all the things that we love, like the outdoors, and they like a lot of baseball and sports and fishing and ocean and faith. And then at the bottom, we have a mission statement, our mission, and a motto. And so our motto is never give up, in our mission statement. And it's so fantastic because we have some similar things that I created when I was in the classroom, the rules of the class, right? These are the rules of our home, essentially. And I can it's physically up in my house. I can redirect. No, remember, this is our motto. This is our mission state. These are our values. So it helps them, but it also helps me to redirect it into something physical. So that's also a fun little tool outside of the day-by-day instruction for a specific subject.
And I love that. And we encourage like family meetings and family get-togethers all the time as well. And if that's laying there or you're building it together at those family meetings, then it just means more to everybody and everybody can really buy into it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that used to
Absolutely.
be able to handled by the generational family, which we've moved away from, especially in the last 50 years. Because it used to be the grandparents would hold that down and they were the main people. And then they had the little sayings like crocheted or stitched into little things around their house. And so you would see these cliche
Prompts.
Statements, and they held this vast information that takes a long time to grow. And so like now it's like at 18, kids are running out, they're going to college, they're getting married, and then they're having kids with no real sense of that knowledge or that wisdom. And so how do we give them that? And so your books and your programs start to give that generational wisdom to people who have lost that generational touch.
Oh, absolutely. Such a good point. The legacy wisdom is priceless. And I do like your imagery is perfect because my husband, he is from Colorado, but his parents were from Michigan. And we did go back for one visit. And the crochet, she had it crocheted, his great aunt, and it was the best saying. Families are mostly sweet. Families are like fudge, mostly sweet, but also a little nuts. So it allowed them to be like, yeah, we're all working hard, but we're going to have our zany, ridiculous moments too. And that just makes me want to put something like that also up in my home because you're right. It is the legacy wisdom because the years and the generational knowledge passed down.
Yeah, and back then the needlepoint and the crochet showed how you had to put effort into that. Now you can like go down to gift shops at a beach resort and find little tin sayings and just nail them up to your door. But back then, it's like they put effort into that, and so some of those houses are like walking into museums of how families used to be and communicate, and how we've gotten away from that. And so part of what we do is we try to start bringing that back.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you.
Exactly.
I'll join your team. That sounds great.
Exactly. So how do we get parents started on this 10 minutes, 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes a week, whatever it's going to take? Help give us a little bit of strategy that our parents can just like dive into right now, because obviously it's not happening enough and we would really love it to happen.
Sure. So I'll tell you what I did, and I'll make some suggestions of what I've had families I've been working with and students I've been working with did. So you pick a day, right? It's like anything. All you have to do is schedule it. So you pick a day. So what I did when I had my aha moment about money and finance, and so the first course I wrote was a goal getter course, but the second course I wrote, that one is about goal attainment and character development. But the second course I wrote after my aha moment and the target was about financial literacy, so money wise. And my first son was young. He was 6 years old. He was in first grade, or was it kindergarten? I can't remember. One of those two. And I picked a day, and he was very busy already with sports and piano and all the fun stuff. So I said Mondays. He had no sports. I would pick them up from school and they would play. And I don't like to get right into education because they need their organic, play, let the brain rest. And it was literally 10 minutes. And people, this is what I think is often misconstrued. 10 minutes can be very powerful if it's directed, right? We were going to start off with a robust 30 minutes, but he didn't have the appetite. So I just sat down with him in my, little office with the bunny and the, dart guns. And we just sat down for 10 minutes. And actually now I've turned it into a book, but I just had like a little piece of paper. And the very first lessons was like something so simple: needs versus wants. And I just sat down with him and I just said, "Hey, Mateo, we're going to just have these money conversations." And he was actually kind of excited because this is the other thing I've learned after teaching this course over the last 4 years, is that financial literacy is a coveted stepping stone. And they already organically know, they're learning through the environment, learning through friendships, learning through the world, that money has value, right? But now I'm going to have this explicit conversation with them. So he's kind of excited and curious. My goodness, so curious. But also, the other thing that happened that I didn't anticipate was that now it's not just getting into the weeds, and we do as they get older, the interest rates and compound interest and wealth management. I do get into that later. But if you start early, after 6 years old, when the child can comprehend logic, what this says, despite the material is important, is our family values being astute in money management. We value understanding money. And so much so, and they could probably say something silly later, like, my mom cared about this so much. So when they're 14, 15, she used to sit me down when I was 6 years old and we had these little conversations about money. And it really, so I just sat down and so let's just have this little conversation. Do you know what a need is? And they're understanding, but they so explicit, definition: need is anything that you need to survive. And it's so simple: water, shelter, food. And what's a want? Well, everything else, all the things you love, the yummy food, the treats, and the specialty clothes, or whatever else they enjoy, right? The Nerf guns. And it's so simple, and it seems so like nothing. It's so obvious. And I write about this in my book, that parents sometimes take on this, it's just not that important uh, uh, persona, where it seems like nothing, right? Like if you're on a diet, going for a 10-minute walk a day seems like nothing. How am I ever going to lose weight? But it adds up. It adds up in this most magical way. So cut to, as my friend always says, so I have this 10-minute conversation. I don't really think much of it. I don't know where this is going to land. It's just something like, I'm just going to try this. And so we had this 10-minute conversations about needs and wants. And then I had like a little picture puzzle, and they point out, oh, the water is a need, this is a want. And so we did a little activity, very high level, simple. Cut to, we were in a Starbucks, a week or so later. And I'm, browsing, we're waiting for it to order something. And there's like, a overpriced coffee mug. And I have 100 coffee mugs. I don't need a coffee mug. And I'm just looking at it because I'm bored. And he tugs on my shirt and he goes, "Mommy, is that a need or a want?" I just giggled
Out of the
to
mouths
share.
of babes, right?
And I said, oh my gosh, this is sticking. That's when I got the second aha, like, this is sticking, this is working. So I'm like, you're right, this is totally a want. And I just put it down. We went about our day, and it was just so rewarding. Like, oh my gosh, this is working. So I kept going. I kept doing all these little lessons, and not every week he was like, let's sit down. It was sometimes like, okay, with 7 minutes, it's but it just added up. And I just have to add one more anecdote, because I did the whole course within it ended up taking about a year. I wrote it as I was going, like, what else would I want to know? Okay, this is bank cards. This is, because they don't know any of the vocabulary, income, interest. They don't know anything. And so it's just super high level. So you can spend a 10-minute conversation just talking about what is income? How does mommy get income? How does daddy get income? How would you, just really, really fun and high level. And like I said, it just like it grows exponentially over time. So then we're like, 5 years down the road, and I have my younger son, maybe it's 3 years down the road, I have my younger son. I just decide, okay, Levi, it's your time to start your money wise class. I make it real special. Like, oh, you're old enough and you get to learn. So mommy's going to do what she did with Mateo for 10 minutes a week. We're going to sit on Mondays. And he's really excited, because he wants to do everything older brother has done.
Yeah.
And so he's getting excited, but again, we're in a store, right, with a lot of consumerism and lots of toys and treats. And Levi goes, my second son goes, Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be rich. And I just kind of look and smile, because in the course, I have this great lesson called being wealthy versus being richy. And I really defined like being wealthy as someone who, waits, invests, and grows, and smart, has this like financial acumen. And we talk about that in the course. And then richie is people that still earn income, but are like spending it, and you're seeing it through their how they spend their money instead of waiting and investing. And so my older son had already done that course, or that lesson. And so he goes, Levi, and this is such another great just anecdote. You don't want to be rich when you won't grow up. You want to be wealthy. And it was just like, oh my gosh, he is just taking this on, right? He understands the distinguishable difference between the two, and then is instructing his younger brother about what is more, valued for our family. And it was so rewarding. So I was like, I gotta have this course and have it be more robust for older, what would I write for my 11 to 14-year-old son, or my older son? And that's when I got into, investing, compound interest, wealth management. And that's when I started teaching that online over the summers. And it was a hit. It sold out every year. And I was like, I gotta give this to parents, because it's so easy. It's not more, it's not ridiculous. You don't have to have a degree in financial management. If I just write the lessons out, and in the book, Future Proof Kids, I put integrated QR codes. So I teach I write how to teach your child, and then you can watch the QR code, and it's fun. It's animated. It's me, but it has some animation. It's 5 to 7 minutes with your child. And then these are the workbooks, and the workbooks have like follow-up little lessons.
Yeah.
So I think it's just so perfect, because it's exactly what I created for myself. I always say, like the cereal, I'm kid tested, mother approved, because we just did it with ourselves. And I've just seen so much good ROI, the return on the investment of them just being a little bit more, astute, and have this value center over money, which was completely absent, like I said, in my Target days, when I was just like, get whatever you want, mom's tired.
Exactly. Yeah. And go ahead.
I'd say that still happens, and there's so many kids who get out of high school and even through the college years, they still don't know how to balance their money or cook. And so it's like Uber this and get
DoorDash
food from
that.
Oh my goodness.
DoorDash that.
Yes.
And so the amount of fun disparity is like intense, because they just don't have any concept of these concepts. So how do we start reaching parents who have been through the system and don't have this? And it's like, well, how do I teach my kids this? I don't know this. So
yes, great question. Okay, so if you have younger kids, like I highly suggest that you start having these conversations. This is a great tool. If you have older children that is like has been absent, or hasn't been addressed, hasn't been overly communicated, great. So this is where I believe something I call, say in my book, the value of a different messenger. So after they reach the teen years, your voice becomes less valuable. So having a third party, someone like me or somebody else, find a different resource who can have these conversations. So like I said, I teach a more robust course called MoneyWise Online. It's a virtual course where I instruct your child, right? So a third party that can say, hey, this is what's valuable over time in the future. And I'm going to lay it all out. We're going to do the history of money. I teach the MoneyWise concepts just 30,000 foot view, right? We're not just going to go into wealth management and, you know, make everybody a millionaire. We're saying, what's the history of money? This is really fascinating. Where did the word money actually come from? It's interesting. It comes from the word monnaie, which is a French word, which comes from the Latin word moneta, which means to warn or advise. So it's just actually becomes this magical little story. Like, oh, we all money is something that we need to, you know, warn about and advise on. So you take that perspective, and then you just having these fun story conversations. When I teach in the MoneyWise course, the first lesson after the history is Mickey Mouse was broke. And most every young person, even in their 20s, has some association with Disneyland, right? They know who Walt Disney is, they know who Mickey Mouse is. If they're fans when they're young, if they're fans of the films, or even they know that now if they're older in their 15 to 20-year-old, they know that that business is a large business, right? It's economically valuable. They understand that inherently. So then if I'm saying Mickey Mouse was broke, they're very curious. Like, what do you mean Mickey Mouse was broke? And then I tell them the story how he started with Snow White, and then he, you know, ran out of money, was going to go, he went bankrupt, then he had to borrow money. And then it becomes just this, what could they do? How are they having this parallel? So it's a third party as they grow older, substantiating what you might be saying. And I do this myself. My good example, my book is my son plays golf, and one of his, you know, homework assignments is every day he has to hit 25 golf balls. We have the net set up in the backyard, and I go out there and I'm like, bend your knees, and he, you know, he says to me, I'm doing it, you know. I don't really want to hear it all. So he just says, I'm doing it. He doesn't necessarily bend his knees. Cut two, we're at the golf course. Guess what? He goes up and hits some balls. His coach, third party, different messenger says, bend your knees. Knees are bent in a split second. So having this second messenger that's only saying exactly what you would say from a different perspective, having that right counsel is extremely effective.
So yeah, that's good for our kids and for us as parents, right? Listen to other perspectives, listen to things that might be helpful to you, right? If you're not sure if you're doing the money things, if you're not sure if you're doing enough with like cooking and things like that, ask other parents, what do you do? How do you introduce it? You know, really kind of reach out, because we're trying to get all of our parents to understand that, yeah, we quote unquote are supposed to know everything, but we know we don't. And there's a lot for all of us to learn and share with each other.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And yeah, use other resources. And I say model, you know, every single lesson now today in the information age is available to you probably for free online, right? And so if you want to model learning, you know, lifelong learning, just search it with your child and learn together. There is nothing wrong with not being the subject matter expert. What will be wrong is not being inquisitive. I really think that's important, modeling lifelong learning. So I always I'm curious with my child. For instance, the other day, one of my sons plays also rugby, and there's a lot of, you know, it's a physical sport. So he was complaining about a headache and a fever. So I got a little bit nervous about concussion. I'm not a doctor. I didn't have any experience with concussions. I don't know much about concussions. So we got online. I got a little nervous because I knew headaches were a sign of concussion, but everything else seemed normal. A doctor had once told me, if one thing's, you know, you have to have a fever, but also lack of appetite or also change in behavior, it's two things that really made something consequential. Some doctor in my history has told me that. So I remember that. So now I have a headache he had, and then the second thing he had was a fever. And I said, I don't really know if a fever is a symptom of a concussion. Let's learn together. So we got online online and we Googled it. Turns out it's not. So it's modeling that learning. I want him, and this is very important. And I write about this in my book too. And this is so important. I got to bring it about the self-learning. Being a person that teach themselves is going to be required in the future. I have been in the classroom so many times, and things can and change, but what is happening today at home, if you're doing homeschool, or in the classroom in a private and public school, I'm in all the schools with my programs, is your child is learning from a teacher, right? And they're also learning from a machine. They're learning from some dynamic system that they're learning themselves. So they're going to need to have that ability to search and research things on their own. So modeling that, your model is the best way for them to be like, oh, that's what you do. When you don't know something, you you Google, they're giggling. I'm sorry, my mom's here. If you hear that in the background,
Nope,
grandma's
all good.
playing. Okay, good. So they're gonna need to have that tool. Like if I don't know something, I'm gonna go out and try to find a resource and teach myself. And so doing that and doing it with your children, doing it alongside your children, and then even, being like, that's interesting. Okay, that makes sense. That type of language where it's not resistance language is also, I believe, very important because it sets the tenor for their consumption of new material or effort and all those things.
We talk about that as a love of learning, making sure you're instilling that love of learning and that curiosity is like, oh, what could be different? Or, oh, I wonder what this means. Curiosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when you are working with families, how do we get the parents involved though? Because that's the other thing, right? Because a lot of parents will step back like, oh, well, like you said, I don't know about money. I don't know about technology. I don't know about construction, how to tinker and make these things. But it's so important when the parents are right there beside. What have you seen about the parents who come alongside their child as they learn?
What have I seen about them coming alongside as they learn?
Mm-hmm.
So
Does it spark conversations
to
and stuff between
motivate
them?
to motivate the child, or to motivate the parent?
Probably to motivate the parent. How do we get,
Right.
again, the
Okay.
parents involved? Because the kids, if the parents are engaged, the children will be. So again, we're a couple of generations now of both parents working. How do we bring the education home? How do we get the
Those
parents to
programs.
be involved and to actually do these things that we're talking about?
Right. So no, first and foremost, you make it palatable. And that's why the reason I named the book Future Proof Kids 10 minutes a week. Everybody, I believe, has 10 minutes. So you need to make sure, I'm not saying you need to teach your kid about, investing or arbitrage or any significant, tax code. No, you need 10 minutes of a little bit. You can have a little bit of instructions through the workbooks I have, or find some sort of curriculum online and have that one-on-one conversation. So I believe every parent can have, I've heard about this on NPR, a special time with their child. And this special time is where the actual child directs the communication, directs, the action and activity, and the parent goes along. And that creates this really unique lifelong bond that's incredibly valuable. So one is the first thing I would tell all parents is it just takes 10 minutes. You don't have to sacrifice all of your time, all of your day. Know that 10 minutes can be extremely significant and powerful. And number two is if you are able to do this. So here's the issue with modern education, and everybody's doing, I truly believe, the best that they can. The school systems, the states, the Fed, everybody's trying to solve this really big issue of education, okay? But the research has shown, right? And this research was done in like the 1980s, that the best way to teach a child, well, they'll learn, year over year, is to have one-on-one education, right? To have one instructor and one student. That's just it. And the problem with education as a whole is that you just can't do that in the classroom. You just can never have, I mean, you can never have that one-on-one dynamic response. You just can't do it. So if you have the time, if you have any interest, just know that this is the best, researched way that students will learn and grow and be successful. And they cannot, even in private schools. I was in a private school, there was only 7 students in one of my classes, and that's amazing. 7-to-1 is an incredible ratio, but you cannot get, it's 1-to-1. 2-to-1 is also pretty powerful, but this is the only way that children are going to learn, because they can have that like one question, very specific, unique response, dynamic. And here's the other thing. This is so productive that it can be done in like a quarter of the time. I mean, you can literally get through a full school day in a couple of hours, right? And here's the other thing, if and this is not to be fear mongery, but so much AI is going into education because of this concept. What they are doing is, so much tech is going into the classroom because they are, defining it as dynamic systems. And this is a good thing in some respects, because your child, can be learning from a machine and it's dynamically responding and getting them. They're doing a math problem, they get this right, then they can have a harder math problem, get it to the next level. And if they get it wrong, then they can go back and make sure they train their brain on that understanding. So that is great. However, it is also missing something pretty profound, which I completely value, is the human connection, right? And then, being in the classroom, 80% of the kids are kind of up and down. They need a hand holding, they need a human connection, and they need motivation to keep participating. So if you think about it that way as well, if you allow your child to be in the classroom, and I love public schools, I'm an advocate for public schools and private schools. I think every school, there's a trade-off, but the best case scenario for your child is for you to be teaching your child. There's so many resources. It's never been better for homeschoolers to do this, because you're going to give them that one-on-one that's they're not going to get anywhere else. You're going to have the resources available. You're going to give them that dynamic. Then they have an extra 6 hours in their day to be doing whatever, like big projects or sports, or like you said, one great unschooling book I read is having a dynamic conversation with their elderly neighbor, right? Or a relationship, working in service, or learning. This is what I love about what you were saying earlier, like the wisdom from elders that they can give, but they also give this something that I don't give because I have too much energy. They just give this very tranquil way of doing things. I love to watch my mom work with my sons. She's in her late 70s. She just goes slow, right? She just pauses. She waits. There's no rush. And they're learning, they're adopting all this subconsciously, right? Just by her demeanor. And it's so valuable. So there's, it's up to each parent. It really is their own decision, but just know it's not harder than it's way easier than you think it is. It's a gift to your child, because they just can't get it anywhere else. And the other thing is, just that doesn't take all that time that you really think it's going to take.
Yeah, we again bring that back to the love of learning. So when you put a kid in the classroom, they're forced into a curriculum, they're forced to do what everybody else is doing. But then when you bring them home, it's like, if you want them to learn, you start bringing in things that they want to learn about. So if you want to teach them reading and they're really into trains, you bring home books on trains. And then once they get their teeth in that, then after a while, it's like okay, no, our half an hour's done, go away. And it's like, and they keep bringing you more and more stuff. Because they want to, because they're loving learning so much that they're trying to bring it to you. And you don't necessarily get that in the public education.
You can't. There's no way to do it. And I that's no fault to them. It's just literally no way to do it, right? Can you imagine being a teacher and being, so for case in point, my third son is a neurologically divergent, right? Is an intellectual disability. It's so very challenged. We've been working so much with him on counting. This is just anecdote to your point. And he was just like 117. He was just really has no, he loves dinosaurs, right? And then I pick up a dinosaur and I say, how many teeth does this dinosaur have? He counts to 50 because he's so curious about how many teeth the dinosaur has. He wants to know, and they just can't do that. And they can't be that dynamic. They can't be that uniquely directed. They're just going to pass him up when he's not counting. Okay, let's count to 10, 1, 2, and he's going to say 17 and get it out of order. And then they're just going to go on to the next lesson. But because I can say, I know he loves dinosaurs, let's just count the dinosaur teeth. We're counting to 50. So you just can't, it's not their fault. It's just not even possible to do that with 30 children. It's just not possible.
We talk often about a great fit environment, right?
And we also talk about not bringing the public education system back into your house. You're not trying to be there pushing the reading and the writing and the arithmetic for 6 or 7 hours to a group of 30 kids. It's like you get that time in like half an hour burst here, an hour burst. If you have multiple kids, it's like you get this one going on this, you get this one going on this, and they're different things. You don't force them into the same likes. And what happens then again is like you spend the half an hour with each child, and then they go out and they start pulling their own stuff in. And how important is boredom to homeschooling? It's like that's amazingly awesome because it's like they get to sit in that and then use their imagination to pull more in. So whereas at school, if you're bored, then you just have to sit in the back and told not to fidget and not do anything and just sit there. So in a homeschool, boredom is actually a fuel, where in the school system, it's a damper on your wanting to learn more. So all of the stuff that you were saying, it's just so right on. Every kid is its own individual, and to give them the best education experience, like the parents know them best.
Absolutely. Yeah. And have that time and effort. And can we just talk about how magically joyful it is to see that aha moment with your child, and rewarding, and just see them take off. And so another anecdote, my son was, missing some numbers in counting, and we have this IEP meeting, and he failed every single goal, right? And I said, okay, so let's talk about the counting specifically, because I work with him at home, right? And I know that he counts 11, 12, and he skips 13, and then goes 14, 15. So let's pinpoint it, because I want to get into the minutia. Let's pinpoint it, because I actually know where the missing link is. So my point is, when you have an intimacy with their knowledge, you can help bridge that gap, rather than it just looking like it's not able to count yet.
Yes, exactly. And that's why we so encourage, parents, if you can't take your child out of school, then you're working with the school, you're in there giving them insights that will help them understand your child, right? And it's not that you go in and demand, oh, you have to teach them this way because this is the only way they learn. That doesn't work in the public school. And you could go in and inform and help them shift things and move things a little bit more towards what's beneficial for your child, that collaboration, that cooperation. And if it just can't happen, then let's find the private school, let's find the homeschool, let's find the pod, the whatever it is that helps your child learn and grow, so they don't have that loss of learning, that loss of love of learning, right? And I love exactly what you're saying around your different programs and things, because you're building that love of learning in the home, outside of the school, and it can happen every single day in just short little bursts. So thank you so much for all of the inspiration. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you had on your list? It's like, oh yeah, I really want to make sure I bring this up today.
No, I guess, just to the complete, what I teach started as, I think I just high level talked about it, was the Goal Getter course, which is character development and goal setting. And it's such a dynamic course for young people, 11 to 14, because it helps it gives them tools. And this is something that was absent in my youth. Very, as a young girl, just so self-conscious, and didn't really have the tools to overcome when I was feeling that way, feeling like less valuable. And so what this course I wrote for young girls originally, but now it's for both young girls and young boys, is all about the foundation of what is a good person and helping define who you want to be as you're growing up. So we do this high level introduction of the 6 core virtues. This is temperance, transcendence, wisdom, justice, etc. And then we all of those are supported by 24 character strengths that each child has inherently, and then we help them define what their inherent character strengths are. It takes them then into a kind of self-reflection and self-vision. I give them some thriving abilities. And at the very end, we create this goal manifesto, which is where the student is writing out, how they want to perform. And this is something very unique to my background. So I worked 15 years in tech. And one of the things when I was working at IBM was this, every week we had a cadence call. And this is where I had to speak to my managers and managers about the sales I was going to bring in. I was a business development executive. And when I went into the classroom, so this is just I thought how the world worked. Every week you set your goal, you told the people that cared about the goal, and so when you follow up in a week, did you attain that goal? And then everybody would make sure that you got there. So when I went into the classroom as a teacher, I just was dumbfounded that none of the students had a goal, right? There wasn't a like how I wanted to perform, what I wanted to learn, and they had no aspiration for even do I want wisdom. It was just kind of this, I'm here, and if I do great, that's wonderful, and if I don't, and this is which was hard to witness, then it's not only that I didn't do well, but I just don't like math, or I just am not a science kid. And so I thought that was fascinating and also scary, because I'm like, oh no, you didn't even set yourself up for success. You didn't tell me I'm the person who cares about your goal, how you want to perform. So you have no support, and now you're just making this blanket statement that you don't like math, or you're not a math person, because you just didn't even set yourself up. So that's what this course is helps the child outline, like who they want to be, gives them the structure of like wisdom, integrity, gives them like a little buffet of things they could choose from, and just try it on. I want to be this courageous person, I want to be this person that tries or doesn't give up. So it's a great dynamic course for young people, and I think it's wonderful for all of us to, as parents, to just listen to them. Like you said earlier, they will go into the weeds on things that they care about. So let them write it down. And this is the stats on goal setting. So over 85% of 11 to 14-year-old students have a goal. They have something deep in their heart. They may not be expressly, so that's great, right? But more than 75% fail at a goal that's inside of them. So that looks, there's an upside there, because here's where the upside lands. Less than 3% of any young person that has a goal write any of it down. So they have something inside that they really aspire to be. I always say kids will surprise you, right? But they aren't giving themselves any structure of how to attain this goal. And that's what this course was designed to do. Because if we take
I'm
that away, then
56 and I still don't do that. So
oh, I
I
know,
still am wanting, I still want what it's like, wow, what am I going to be when I grow up?
I love that. But I love that, because that's what I mean, every 10 years, my uncle was amazing. He kind of reinvented himself. And I think that's absolutely part of the human experience, right? You're going to do this for 10 years or do this, and that's okay. But it's really fun if you write it down to like go for it and have some structure.
Awesome. Beautiful. Elena, how can parents get a hold of you? We're going to say it out loud. Of course, it's all down in the show notes as well. But what's the best way for them to get a hold of you if they need to pick your little brain a little bit, or they want to grab something that you've been working on?
Please. So my website is www.kidlaboratories.com. Laboratories is plural. At Kid Laboratories, you can see all the work I've been doing on my Instagram. I just started TikTok. So you can find stuff there. If you want to see, coursework I've developed, or other students that have taken my courses and see their feedback, I have a number of testimonials, parents on there as well. That's about it. The book and the workbook series is going to be launching at the end of this month. Future Proof Kids, 10 minutes a week. If you just Google me, there's been a bunch. I was in the USA Today about the AI workshop I created, as well as the book series. I am literally on a mission to make sure that parents have these resources, because it's so simple. And I've been teaching these courses, and they can get up in price over the summer for the last 4 years, and they sold out every year. And my mom was the one who came to me, and she's like, I don't know if I, single mom, I have been able to afford these courses. And I said, I'll write a book. I'll write a book. It'll be $25.99, and then give parents the tools they could do it themselves. Because I believe parents should be teaching this stuff to their kids, because you're the first line of defense. You're the teacher, right? There's no better, because you're with your child the most, right? I used to teach Sunday school, and you with that child 1 hour, one day a week, and the values of that is so high level. But so it's the parents. It's like the day to day. These are our values. These are our values, and that's why I put so much time and energy to create the videos, to make it so seamless, so parents could do it without being nervous or scared or anxious or uncertain, right? You read the book, you watch the video, you do the workbook, and then, reap the benefits.
I love it, love it, love it. Thank you so very, very much.
Yes, and I would like to thank you for being here today. So many people find out these problems and then they just do it themselves. You are putting yourselves out there. You are actually working to make the world a better place. And so many people don't do that, and so many people should. But it's a really tough place to walk, and you're doing it. You went out and you fought the dragon, and then you're sharing the gold with the village. And that is the hero's journey. So thank you for being a hero, and thank you for actually doing stuff to make the world a better place for our parents and for our kids.
Wow, that means the world to me. You have no idea. Thanks.
Yeah, and we're blessed, because we get to have people like you on here that care so much. And that's why we want to make sure that we're sharing this show. If you are a parent, if you've heard this, if Bringing Education Home has brought you some value by listening to these experts, by digging in and maybe even tapping into some of their programs, please go share with another family. There are families out there who just need a little bit of support, a little bit of inspiration, and then they will take off, like their kids will take off, and our communities will be so much better. So please love, like, and share Bringing Education Home.
And in the comments, do the @ and the person you want to share this with, because that also creates engagement with the show. It gets it out to more people, and then also send them a share. So let's get it out there, make this a little more visible to more people, because more people need to hear these messages like from Elena and see these heroes that are on our podcast making the world a better place.
All right, everybody, it is time for us to go, but we will be back next week and be looking for a change at the beginning of July. It is currently June 2026, July of 2026. Something a little different is going to happen. Maybe more Bringing Education Home. Anyway, until later, bye for now.
Bye for now.
Hey, thanks again.
Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts